Nigel Farage, at the 8th time of asking, becomes an MP representing Clacton in Essex as the leader of the Reform UK party, just moments after Jeremy Corbyn beat Keir Starmer's Labour in Islington. But Nigel Farage, whose party, Reform UK, of course...
Keir Starmer's. Thursday started with a bombshell. A new poll hit him hard, showing that Nigel Farage's Reform UK has crept ahead of Labour in public favour, marking an astonishing shift in British politics. Labour, the long-standing opposition force, is trailing a party once considered fringe. With half the country holding a negative view of Starmer, one has to wonder, could this be the beginning of a political shake-up that no one saw coming?
My efforts and my work will be solidly behind Richard Tice and Reform UK. Make no doubt about that.
Reform UK may not have the parliamentary muscle that Labour or the Conservatives do, but it's making waves in British politics, primarily due to the influence of Nigel Farage. Reform UK emerged as a political force advocating for conservative values with a populist, anti-establishment approach, aiming to offer an alternative to what it sees as a stagnant political landscape. Farage, the party's charismatic leader, has been around the political bloc, from the Brexit campaign to his time with UKIP, and has always found a way to appeal to those who feel sidelined by the political establishment. By championing issues like British sovereignty, controlling immigration, and a return to common-sense governance, Reform UK has struck a chord with people frustrated by the major party's policies, making Farage one of the most recognisable voices for change in the country.
I think what Reform UK has achieved in those just few short weeks is truly extraordinary. Given that we had no money, no branch structure, virtually nothing across the country.
The public's reaction to Farage's Reform UK is a complex mix of dissatisfaction with the mainstream parties and appreciation for the clear, no-nonsense approach that Farage embodies. People are tired of political doublespeak and policies that seem disconnected from the average Brit's daily life. Farage has tapped into that weariness, positioning himself as the spokesperson for those who feel ignored. Reform UK's popularity reflects a broader trend of anti-establishment sentiment sweeping across the UK, particularly after years of political manoeuvring that has left many feeling disillusioned. People see Farage as a breath of fresh air, someone unafraid to call out the political class and articulate concerns others seem unwilling or unable to address. His criticism of ongoing issues, whether it's immigration policy, rising taxes, or economic challenges, resonates with voters who want practical solutions, not lofty promises.
We will now be targeting Labour votes. We're coming for Labour, be in no doubt about that. I want to thank the team that have helped me do this over the last few weeks, my fellow candidates for behaving as impeccably as they have.
The growing favourability of Reform UK is putting immense pressure on both Labour and the Conservatives. For Labour, it's a jolt to see Farage's party, previously dismissed as a fringe movement, gaining traction and public approval. This indicates that the public is open to a more conservative approach that challenges Labour's traditional stance. For the Conservatives, it's even more troubling. Reform UK is competing for the same conservative voter base, drawing support from those who feel that the Tories are becoming too moderate or failing to uphold core conservative values. As Reform UK's popularity climbs, both major parties are beginning to grapple with the reality that a fresh political narrative could disrupt their standing, hinting that the British public is looking for a political overhaul rather than the same old routine from established parties.
Our Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, who, between herself and Sir Keir Starmer, have literally made it a virtue of making themselves deeply unpopular. They promised not to raise taxes on working people. Only no one appears to be able to define just what that actually means. What is a working person?
Keir Starmer, who should be riding high as the face of Labour, is struggling to win the hearts of the British public. Recent polling paints a stark picture. Nearly half of voters hold a negative opinion of Starmer, an especially hard-hitting blow given Labour's history as the party of the people. Starmer's approach to leadership has come under fire for being too rigid and out of touch, leaving many Labour supporters wondering if he's the right person to carry the party forward. This isn't just about policies, it's about personality and public trust, both of which are crucial in British politics. Voters aren't simply ambivalent. They're concerned that Starmer may lack the spark and relatability necessary to connect with the average Brit, and it's showing in the numbers. The drop in public favour suggests a much deeper problem for Starmer, as the image of him being dull or uninspiring increasingly overshadows Labour's vision.
We knew that Keir Starmer doesn't really have any beliefs, he doesn't have any big vision, the Labour Party has run out of political steam, it's not very inspiring. We knew all that, but people took a punt on Keir Starmer for one reason only, which is that he promised he would return competence to government and sanity to the country, and he's done the precise opposite of that.
Labour's core supporters are starting to feel the strain, questioning if Starmer's Labour is as committed to the working class ideals that once defined the party. Labour has always relied on its loyal base, people who believe that it represents their best interests against what they see as a detached political elite. But with Starmer at the helm, there's been a visible shift, with some of Labour's traditional voter base expressing discontent over policies and leadership decisions that seem to lean towards a middle ground approach rather than strong leftist stances. The disconnect has cost Labour a crucial part of its identity, leaving voters disillusioned and open to other options. Options like Reform UK, which doesn't shy away from a straightforward approach that speaks directly to the frustrations of everyday people.
The reason that's particularly bad for Labour, worse than it was even under the Tories, is that Labour openly promised to be anti-sleaze. They said, we will not be like the party that ran this country for 14 years. We will be clean as a whistle. We will be morally pure. We will be whiter than white. And in fact, they're as bad as the Tories, if not worse.
And that's Starmer's inability to create a unified, energised movement under Labour's banner is a pressing issue. It's more than just a popularity problem. It's a leadership crisis that's impacting Labour's potential to resonate with the public. People want to believe in a leader who not only listens but genuinely understands the day-to-day struggles they face. But the lack of clear, people-centric policies has many feeling that Labour under Starmer lacks direction. In an era where political authenticity is valued more than ever, Starmer's polished but somewhat stiff demeanour has left Labour appearing out of touch, leading to declining support and a divided base that could spell trouble for the party's future.
And having extended invitations to all the major party leaders for an interview, today we're joined by Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. He tackled creepy crawlies in the I Am a Celebrity jungle last year, but how does he feel about coming on Loose Women? Let's find out. Please welcome Nigel Farage.
In an interesting twist, younger voters, who traditionally leaned left or embraced progressive ideas, are increasingly gravitating towards Reform UK. With platforms like TikTok amplifying Nigel Farage's reach, Reform UK has managed to tap into the Gen Z demographic in a way that few would have predicted. Farage's knack for presenting himself as a down-to-earth, relatable figure resonates with young people who feel disillusioned with traditional politics. These younger voters are looking for authenticity and a break from politics as usual, and Reform UK, with its anti-establishment stance, seems to be giving them just that. For young people who see the political establishment as part of the problem rather than the solution, Reform UK's unapologetic tone is refreshing, offering a voice they don't find in Labour or Conservative leaders.
We heard a canvasser for Reform UK making extremely racist comments about the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, describing him as a P-word. And can I just say that some of this is offensive, so I apologise in advance. He also said about illegal immigrants, their target practice, just shoot them.
Social media, especially TikTok, has played a significant role in this shift, making Farage's message accessible and relevant to a younger audience. Unlike the often polished, rehearsed content from mainstream politicians, Farage's posts feel spontaneous and unfiltered, giving an air of authenticity that Gen Z craves. He's become somewhat of a social media fixture, especially among politically active young people who enjoy his blunt critiques of the system. Farage's team has skillfully harnessed the reach of platforms where younger demographics spend their time, placing him in front of an audience that is increasingly wary of politicians who follow traditional, formal paths. This strategy has allowed Reform UK to create a strong foothold among young voters who are tired of the political status quo and eager for new ideas.
After the recent allegations about political betting, how would you restore trust in politics?
This takes leadership. What I did when one of my team was alleged to have been involved and investigated by the Gambling Commission, they were suspended within minutes.
Labour's recent policy decisions have hit a nerve with one of its most reliable voter bases, older Britons. The winter fuel allowance cuts, a policy change that seemed insignificant to some, was a gut punch to many elderly voters who rely on that allowance to make it through the colder months. For years, the winter fuel allowance has been a lifeline, allowing pensioners to heat their homes without the worry of unmanageable bills. By introducing means testing and narrowing the eligibility for this benefit, Labour has left a bitter taste in the mouths of many who had been long-standing supporters. This decision has stirred strong feelings of disappointment, as it's viewed not only as an economic blow, but as a shift in values for a party that traditionally champions the welfare of ordinary people. The backlash goes beyond the immediate consequences of the fuel allowance cut. It signals a larger erosion of trust between Labour and its older voters. These voters are often seen as a consistent bloc, reliable and loyal, drawn to Labour's roots in supporting working class and vulnerable populations. Losing this group's support is more than a dip in the polls. It's a warning sign for Labour's leadership under Keir Starmer. As they watch the party they once trusted appear to disregard their needs, many older voters are left feeling abandoned. This erosion of trust is particularly troubling for Starmer, who needs a broad base of support if Labour hopes to maintain its competitive edge. Watching a core demographic drift away shows that something deeper is amiss in how Labour's values are being communicated and perceived under his leadership. Labour's struggle to hold on to its older voting base is not just about policy missteps. It's about the perception that the party no longer stands firmly in its corner. For a party built on principles of fairness and support for the common citizen, this shift in support is especially damaging. Labour is losing its grip on one of its most consistent voting blocs, and that signals a crisis in Starmer's leadership. The policy choices under his direction are driving a wedge between the party and a group it could once count on. This drop in older voter support doesn't only hurt Labour's immediate prospects, it threatens its long-term stability. If the party continues down this path without addressing these concerns, it risks alienating a generation of voters who are crucial to its identity and survival.
We're an island. Why can't we easily close our borders?
If Keir Starmer is your Prime Minister, all those illegal migrants will be out on our streets. And that is the choice for you. Do not surrender our borders to the Labour Party.
Steve, this is complete and utter nonsense.
On the numbers.
Sir Keir said, hang on.
If it were working, why are record numbers still coming under your watch, Prime Minister? How on earth can you say it's working?
Labour's approach to the migrant crisis has created a major rift between campaign promises and real-world governance. During the election, Labour presented itself as the party that would end the Conservative policy of using hotels to house asylum seekers. They criticised the policy as wasteful, inefficient and inhumane, promising that Labour would offer a better solution that was both cost-effective and respectful of asylum seekers. However, in a surprising turn, Labour has found itself negotiating with hotel chains to secure more rooms for migrants. This U-turn has left many disappointed and questioning the party's commitment to the very ideals it championed during the campaign. The promised alternative approach to housing asylum seekers has yet to materialise. and Labour is now shouldering the same criticisms it once directed at its predecessors. The public's response to Labour's reversal has been swift and critical. Voters are frustrated, feeling misled by promises that seemed like a clear departure from Conservative policies, but have ended up looking remarkably similar. People had high hopes that Labour's approach to the migrant crisis would be different, reflecting the party's values of compassion and efficiency. Instead, the government's reliance on hotels to accommodate the growing number of asylum seekers has come across as hypocritical. The shift not only undercuts Labour's credibility, but also reinforces a perception of political inconsistency, leaving voters sceptical of future promises. Labour's attempts to manage the migrant crisis in this way have damaged its relationship with those who believed it could offer a more humane approach. Implementing a fast-track asylum processing system, as Labour has proposed, is another area fraught with challenges. The legal and bureaucratic hurdles involved in streamlining asylum cases are significant. From lengthy appeals processes to compliance with international standards, the obstacles are far more complex than campaign rhetoric might suggest. Labour's intention to reduce hotel dependency by speeding up asylum claims may be admirable, but achieving it is a different story. Each case involves intricate legalities, and without sweeping reforms, Labour will struggle to deliver on its promises. The backlash Labour is facing over the migrant crisis reveals a broader struggle to balance ideals with practical governance, as they learn that complex issues demand more than sound bites and promises. This situation has not only impacted their standing with voters, but has also highlighted a growing gap between campaign optimism and the gritty realities of leading a nation.